Alright guys, this is kind of a long one, but there's a table of contents in the description below, and you can click around to the links of the various pieces of information in this video, and feel free to do so as well. There's also tons and tons of links in the description below, and I want to start off by saying that last night a lot of you guys probably got a notification that I uploaded a video. I did. It was just a model of the new race frame that's coming out, the Hyperlite Dragana, and it was just for somebody that's making some 3D modeled parts or 3D printed parts for it, so I made it for that person. Sorry, the frame is coming very soon. It is a pretty darn astonishing frame. It's nothing new, it's not like super original or anything, but the package that we've put together is pretty darn amazing. So I've been working on that for a while now with Sergio, Doma FPV, Chris Griffin, Mayday FPV, a couple other Corey Yates, Shaun Taylor. Like, we've been working on this for a while now, and it's coming very, very soon. Okay, so the next thing I want to start off with, I keep track of a lot of the new pilots that are coming into the space, and there's no shortage of incredible pilots these days, but there is one pilot that is at the top of all of the DRL leaderboards, and it's kind of eerie that he's at the top of all the DRL leaderboards, at least up until like a couple weeks ago when I checked. And this guy's name is Robogenesis, and you're watching this video now. When you watch this video, the general quality of flight and control is just beyond anything that I could ever muster up. I mean, I could probably do all of these moves that he's doing independently if I tried them a couple times, but to be able to string them all together like this so fluidly and so evenly and just effortlessly, that is just a whole different level. This is what I mean when I tell people I might look like a great pilot, but I'm actually not that fantastic. I've been doing this for 2.5, maybe more years, and I really should be better than I am, but I don't get any time to fly, and that's why I've kind of half pathetically moved towards micros to give myself a little more time to fly. Okay, so the next thing I want to go over is onboard. I have a really long list here. Onboard DVR. So I have this quad here, which I've been flying with the onboard DVR. This is the HGLRC Zeus all-in-one flight controller board, which I kind of don't recommend. The performance is so-so, not the best. But the onboard DVR that I'm using is a DTX03. And originally, when I first started watching videos of this and posting videos to my Instagram, I noticed that the videos were just very dark. And I have split. So here's what it's actually doing. And this is the other onboard DVR that I want to talk to you guys about, which is the HDMS something. I don't know. The description's in the link. Link is in the description below. But what these DVRs want you to do is they want you to split your video feed. So when you wire this thing up, your video doesn't go into it and then out of it to your DVR. You actually need to splice the line and run 2 lines, one to this and one to your VTX. And so that is also what the DTX03, the Eachine DTX03 does. That's what I have in here. I have another one which I forgot to bring out and show you guys. But what's happening is, I believe there is a way to amplify the signal so this effect doesn't happen. When you splice a line, a video line in particular, I think it's a 5-volt line, you get half the voltage to each line. And I've done this in the past because I've tried to run in Croatia, in my Croatian TV show. I wanted to run like diversity video, like have 2 VTXs running multiple antennas, multiple directions, so that I could get better long-range signal out of the craft. And that didn't work out because when you splice the line, the video just becomes half the brightness. And when I started posting videos to Instagram, I noticed that the videos were just dim. I had to brighten them up a whole bunch. And that's what's happening in these VTXs and these DVRs. So if you're going to be running an onboard DVR, I mean, I've asked so many VTX manufacturing companies already to please make a VTX with an onboard DVR that's not Eachine, because I really do think these things have a lot of value. But I think somebody's got to do something about the darkness of the video. The biggest dilemma with a dark video is that in post-processing, you have to pull the brightness up and down, and the dynamic range of DVR is already pretty darn low. So you run into these issues where you have like this foggy image that you have to like increase the contrast, and you lose a bunch of detail in the video. So you could potentially get a much better product out of this board if you had that amplifier, if you did some other stuff. Anyways, onboard DVR is a viable product, I think, but it needs a little bit of work. So the next thing I recently received is the Cyclops. This thing is 2.2 grams. This is just the DVR. The DTX03 is, I don't know, like 5-6 grams. And this is the 4.4 gram Cyclops. This is the Cyclops standalone. You can use it for FPV, but there's a delay, the latency, so nobody's going to use it for FPV. But it's pretty much just a recording camera. You can consider it a super duper micro GoPro. And I was really hopeful about this thing because I saw some videos online of, I totally forgot his name, links in the description below, but he put it on a tiny whoop and started flying it around, and the video was really surprisingly good. I do understand that the lens that comes on this is not ideal, and you can switch it out with any other, what's it called, all-in-one micro VTX camera combo thing, and you can get a better field of view with less distortion. But the dilemma with this camera is just that it's just not good. There are things that they can do to improve this tremendously, improve the light handling, improve the lens, improve the color, improve the bitrate if possible, but it's just not, there's not enough good stuff here to really go on. And I've already tried contacting the Turbo Wing company to see if they can improve this, and I'm sure they will, but it's not really a viable product. Just like how Micros recently got all of their huge upgrades, there's going to need to be a pretty significant upgrade in these micro cameras to make them viable. Something else I want to say that I discussed in a couple of videos long time ago, when you have a field of view that's not optimal or just too narrow, it makes you look like a much worse pilot than you really are. And when you're looking at these two feeds side by side, this is the same feed. The DVR looks much more appealing. It makes me look like a much better pilot than this little HD camera thing, because the field of view is just too narrow, and there's also a ton of distortion, but whatever. But keep that in mind. That's why the GoPro's Super View is so attractive, and that's why it makes everything look so good. At least that's part of the reason why everything looks so good. So then after I got all fed up, I tried this. I just strapped the GoPro to the Micro, and this is 243 gram all-up weight. And these motors are pretty darn powerful. So I gave it a shot and see what happens. And shockingly, well, not really shockingly, I knew it was going to fly fine. It does just drop like a rock, which is unfortunate, and it doesn't really have power to recover from dives and things as easily, but it flies fine. I mean, I wouldn't really recommend somebody run a GoPro on a 2.5 inch, but hey, you can if you like. The next thing up is the RcINpower 1108 motors. So I have been running all the videos you previously saw were with that 1108 motor, and I have previously been running the 1106s, the Hyperlite 1106s, which is the brother hobby motor. I've also tested a couple other 1106s, including the Emax 1106. They all perform pretty similarly. I think around 7,000 kV is ideal in the 1106 size. You kind of get the max performance for not like a ridiculous amount of amps, but it does draw a whole bunch of amps. The 1108s, okay, so I have the Hawksky 1107 as well as the RcINpower 1108, and I haven't been able to run the 1107s yet because I only have 3 of the motors because they were sold out of the rest, so they said that they'll send 3 and then they will send more when they get more in. So I got more coming there, and holy moly, I couldn't even believe that 2.5 inch props and 3S 500 milliamp batteries had so much performance left in them. And I still get about 3 to 3.5 minutes flight time, which is pretty darn good. That being said, I cannot figure out for the life of me how to get these motors to not run hot. They're just really, really hot running motors. It almost is a little bit too much power in terms of amp draw for the battery. It can definitely suck it dry. If you just are just cruising around, you get pretty good flight time. But I think maybe 6,500 or 6,000 to 6,500 kV and 1108 is going to be maybe the optimal size motor for 2.5 inch. Okay, so the motor's got a lot of power, but I'm not a fan of the construction. As you can see, the motor has like a totally enclosed casing. The bottom is totally closed. You can't see the windings when you're screwing them in. If you have screws that are too long, you might harm your windings, might damage the motor. The motor weighs 9 grams. The Hawksky 1107 weighs 8.1 grams, so it's with the long wire. So you can expect that the 1107 is about a gram lighter, so there's no reason why 1 millimeter more should be an entire gram more of weight. One nice thing about the motor is that the bell is right up against the base, so even if you do knock the motor really hard, you probably have less of a chance of bending the shaft because it's just going to bounce off the bottom of the casing. It's kind of a side effect, I guess. I don't know if it's really going to work like that, but I really don't like the construction of this motor. On top of that, It's using relatively weaker magnets, and this is a topic that is kind of up for debate and up for discussion. You really don't want a motor that's kind of super notchy like the Hawksky 1107 is, because you want to have a really even flux field of magnetic flow around the whole bell. So Andy RC posted a video on the Piroflip page of his Hyperlite Floss 2. It's just a random build, nothing special, and he used the radar gun to clock it, and he was shocked that it does 115 miles per hour. Honestly, I was shocked that it does 115 miles per hour as well. So that inspired me to try and see what my micros can do, and at the time I didn't have my 1108s or anything yet. I only had the 1106s, and so I taped the radar gun to a stool, the stool that I'm sitting on right now. I had a radar gun and started doing passes over the radar gun to see how fast I can get it going. The first time I flew it up, it was just a test run. I was just like soaring over to see if the radar gun would even pick it up. And it clocked it at 63, 60 something miles per hour. And I thought, okay, that's pretty good. Let's see how fast I can actually go when I push it. Then with each successive battery, I couldn't get it past like even 52 miles per hour. And I was really confused because I was doing perfect passes, like inches above the radar gun at top speed. And then I started feeling the motor temperatures, and I started realizing that, holy moly, it's probably the motor temperatures. And it's not running super hot, but the motors do run warmer than I would like. And I think that it's just the motor temperatures, and that is a pretty enormous difference. So something I've noticed in micros is that they exhibit these big factors, these various effects, much easier than larger quads, than like 5-inch quads. And I've noticed the motor heat effect also in 5-inch quads. But damn, that's a 30%, about almost a 30% difference with the micro, and I couldn't believe it. And yeah, I can feel it when the motor kind of starts to heat up and I kind of lose a little bit of performance, but I didn't think it was going to be that much. And unless you're really pushing it at the top end, I guess you don't really see it. But man, this makes me think that if you are running batteries back to back, you're probably better off having multiple quads and alternating between them, maybe even 3 quads. So instead of just running the same quad up and up and up, maybe alternate between quads, or just check your motor temperatures. This also lends support to the idea that a well-tuned quad that doesn't run hot is going to be much faster and perform much, much better. And it's something that I personally have felt many times. When I get that tune right and I get everything just right, the quad performs much, much better than anything before. Next up, I have another feature flaw with Fatshark goggles. So a while ago, I made my mod video with their 18650 battery pack case, and this is an issue that I get with the other battery packs as well. But check it out. Look how the battery is hanging. When you pick up your goggles and you have your fan thing plugged in, that red wire or whatever the wire is on top, look at it. It's being stressed right now. That wire has ripped out of that multiple times, and it doesn't just rip from like pulling rip. It rips from constant stressing of pulling it up and down, and it gets bent until it just cracks. I have repaired this darn wire maybe a dozen times in the last 6 months, and it's led me to just not use my fan. And this is one of the reasons why I'm not so happy with Fatshark, because I don't know why they couldn't just do some minor modifications inside the goggles to put a power circuit to power the fan inside the goggles. I understand manufacturing that is going to cost a lot more, but I mean, it's hard to believe that Fatshark's not making enough money to redesign goggles. I mean, they've made so many goggles already. Anyways, my fix to this was to just either not use the fan on board anymore, or just, you know, forget trying to charge my batteries inside this case, because I'm just too lazy to keep fixing this. So I went and picked up the ISDT Smart Charger C4, and this is their charger that charges the AA's, AAA's, and 18650 cells. Does a fantastic job, you know, just like every other ISDT charger. Nothing special. Does great, and that's that. And so I have stooped to just charging my 18650 cells outside the case, unfortunately. On that same note, let's talk about these goggles. So these are the Falcon goggles, and I actually named these goggles, and I've been working with Flysight on these goggles for a while now, and I've been working on these because I wanted to offer this as my own product. I was going to offer this myself. Like, I will produce the product with them, they will create it for me, manufacture it for me, and I will offer it myself through retailers. But unfortunately, every single I went through the most minute details with these guys about what these goggles should be and how they should be made, and they just could not get it right. Down to the casing, they could not get right. For example, I told them, make the casing such that you can put the goggles with the antennas in the casing with everything in there, with the batteries and the spare battery. Don't make the casing such that you have to take off your module, take off your antennas, take off your stuff in order for it to fit in the casing. And this is what they gave me, a casing that cannot fit any of that stuff. They did not even make the module bay the correct size. When I told them, hey, just pick up a Fatshark module, stick it in there, and see if it fits. Because, like, that's what we need. We just need, I mean, there's enough Fatshark modules out there, and I don't think it's like stepping on Fatshark's toes or anything, because it's now pretty much become a standard to have a module bay just like Fatshark. They didn't do that right. When you put a module in there, it doesn't fit properly. It's just mind-blowing. I told them, okay, let's make a battery casing. And I, gave them every single detail about how to make a battery casing for 18650 cells. This is what they gave me. So this is a voiceover, and you can probably tell my frustration with this product. I completely abandoned the product because I was so frustrated with it. It's not a bad product, it's just not really fantastic, and they're charging way too much money for a product that's not really fantastic. And the reason why it's so expensive is, again, because the modules are just so damn expensive. The screen and optics modules are so expensive, and they're really bad. I have been working really hard to find a screen that's suitable to the lenses that I already have that cost like 10 cents a piece to make, and it's just mind-blowing, and it's so frustrating. I really hope that soon I could find a screen that's suitable so that I can make a goggle product that's actually really good, or somebody comes out with a pair of goggles that are really good that I can switch to and not have to worry about. Next thing I want to show you is super fun. So the Tiny Whoop group, so Tiny Whoop people are really passionate about their Tiny Whoops, and that's really fantastic. And somebody came up with something they're calling a Tiny Whoover, or Whoover, or however you say it. And this thing is so cool, I have to show you guys. And the description, and the link is in the description below. Go check out this video, go check out this stuff, because it just looks like so much fun. And it's a Tiny Whoop that's been modified. I don't know how they did the whole Betaflight mix to get the motors to work the way they do, but I mean, you have a little hovercraft, and it's awesome. Next topic is the Open Grove racetrack. And Open Grove is a racetrack that's here in Oxnard, California. And Shaun Taylor is actually going to be coming here for a race that they are putting on in his honor, and he's going to race some of the top pilots that we have down here. And that's going to be a really good race because we've got some really, really good pilots, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And something about Open Grove that's very special is that it's a facility that is entirely run by the community, by the guys here, and we're very close-knit, and we have very close discussions about what and how to do things there. And so they have a racing format that I personally feel, and many other pilots also feel, is a far superior format than anything we've seen from the big name race organizers. This is a format that's been around for a long time. RC car people have been using this format for a long time. It's mains racing. And so what I'm going to be trying to do is, because mains racing, if you know the format, I'm not going to go over it here, it only involves about 5 actual races. So it's much more entertaining for the viewer. And that's really where we need to focus. All these race organizations are, they're doing a great job with the races and everything is fine, but they have totally forgotten about the viewership. Like, how do you maintain this without the viewership that's necessary to me? I mean, not everybody races, and a lot of these races, most people can't even begin to compete. So we want to watch it. We want to be excited to watch all the pilots that we know, all the pilots that we follow race. We want to see who wins, and we want good coverage, and we want a nice edited finished product. I don't know why they spend all this money, do all this effort, and they end up with nothing. All they get is, oh, this guy won, that's it. And so what I'm going to be trying to do is I'm going to try to record this this mains race, or at least hopefully I have time, with the people here. And me, or maybe somebody else, we're going to try to aggregate all the video together and edit it into one little thing. And it's not going to be super fancy, but at least it's going to be organized and cohesive so that you can actually follow the action. And I'm hoping that it's going to be very entertaining. Entertaining enough to get the audience to kind of put pressure on the organizations to start thinking about making the races more entertaining to watch and less of a waste of time for the viewership. Next up is the controller coming from Underground FPV. This is the Dark Knight controller. There, it's the code name for now. It kind of looks like a Batman symbol. Dark Knight controller. It's going to be running OpenTX. It is a video game style thing. It is made specifically for thumbers and pinchers. It looks very, I have not held one. I've seen multiple renderings, and I've seen the actual product casing being held. It looks very, very good for pinchers. There's a couple things that I'm not really super excited about on the controller, but I understand why they had to make the decisions that they made, and I'm really looking forward to it because it's a new class of controller, and it's being designed by people that fly just like us, people from the community. So really looking forward to that. Next, I'm going to show you the latest version of the Tooth Fairy, which is this frame here, which you've seen plenty already. I've actually redesigned it already. The new redesign is coming. This antenna format that I have on the back here is really, really good. It's really, really, really good. I've gone well over 2 kilometers with this tiny little thing with this antenna format, and my RSSI has not dropped below 50. It's just been locked at 50, and I couldn't believe it because I'm the person that has all the radio problems in the whole wide world. Anyways, I've redesigned the whole frame yet again. I've taken off this, so the design of my whole design concept is that everything, the whole stack sits on a sheet of TPU. That's right there. It's just above, I don't know if you can clearly see it. It's just above this main plate. So it goes main plate, arms, and then a sheet of TPU. And everything is mounted to that TPU sheet. And it works out really great for vibrations. And there's a couple of people that are going to start using that for larger frames, for 5-inch frames, because it just works out so nicely. But in a micro, that sheet of TPU weighs 1.9 grams. And I'm not 100% certain it's necessary, especially with the flight controllers coming out very soon, or ones that are out already, which I'm going to talk about in a second. So I've redesigned the frame to eliminate that sheet of TPU, and I put holes in the top plate and bottom plate. And something that's really special about this frame is that I've made it such that there's only 2 carbon parts. The top plate and the bottom plate are the same. The front arms and the back arms are the same, and I really love that because I hate having so many parts. I've tried to simplify everything. There's only one type of screw in the whole thing, and that's how I'm designing everything moving forward. I cannot deal with complexity anymore. I need to keep it as simple as I can possibly imagine. So I'm just reducing the number of parts of everything. And so that's coming. And then the other thing is, I'll talk to you about this one. This is the Toothpick, which I've really been wondering if I should really come out with, because building this thing costs only about 10-15 bucks less than a Baby Hawk R. So I don't know why anybody would want to build this thing over just buying a Baby Hawk R. It will come out because there are going to be some really cool little pods, and it's a neat looking tiny frame. It's a cute little frame. These are the Brother Hobby 0804 10,000 kV motors. They're good for 2S, but honestly, after running 3S and after running 1108s, I cannot go back to 2S or 1S again. Like, it's fun for just dawdling around, but these motors they feel super powerful, super notchy. I mean, they're Brother Hobby quality, but you have to have a really special reason to want to run 2S or a craft of this size. Now, this thing being built on 3S, because it will take 20 by 20 stack and the big beefy 1108 motors, because it's a 8 gram or 9 gram frame, that thing is going to rip very hard. And it'll be fun. So it'll come out at some point. I don't know if there's too much excitement around this frame, so it'll come. But as I was saying before, the receiver that I'm running on this frame that goes very, very, very far, as well as this frame that goes very, 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 very far, is the R-XSR. And this little tiny thing is full featured. It does all the same stuff that the larger XSR does, and I'm really impressed. This is the first time that I have been able to get just incredible range and incredible performance on any of my Frsky gear at all in over 2.5 years. I'm getting similar performance to my Crossfire, although I don't do super long range with the Crossfire. I just got it to have a locked signal, relatively close range. And as I said, the 20 by 20 stacks that are coming are, this is an example. So if you remember, DYS came out with their all-in-one omnibus thing a while ago, and that was it was a good stack for its time, but very, very quickly after that, there were a number of stacks that came out that were better than it, namely the Matek one, and then the CL Racing board. And the CL Racing board, I think, is one of the most preferred all-in-one boards at the moment. Like, by all-in-one, I mean it's a flight controller and a PDB and everything built in one. And now DYS has come out with their 20x20 stack that is a F4 flight controller. It has an OSD on board. It couples with a 4-in-1 that they've made that's 18 amp, 4S capable. It has a current sensor on board, which is phenomenal. I think it's one of the first 20x20 non-32-bit ESC boards that have a current sensor on board, and it all couples together. And the flight controller has soft mount grommets in it, so you don't need to soft mount it or anything like that. That's pretty fantastic. And DYS they haven't made the very best quality electronic components. I mean, they work fine. I'm going to be testing this board shortly, but I would really like to see the same kind of setup from another company that's better quality, maybe CL Racing, maybe from Motec. I think this is kind of an indication of the future to come. This is where the boards are going to be going. So on that same note, this is the Hyperlite F4 board. I've kind of sort of half showed you guys this in the past, and I don't even know if I should be showing you this now. It's coming very soon. I think it should be coming in about a week. And this is a total redesign by me and Sergio that we did together, and it came out a lot better than I could possibly imagine. I'm really actually genuinely excited about it. I've been running the Asgard and the Kamikaze all-in-one boards for a while now, and I thought, like, this is it. I'm not going to run anything else. But then once we redesigned this board, I was really excited about it. And as you can see here, it's got a completely flat back, and probably one of the best features about it is that it's got the instructions written right on the board. So you don't have to go hunting for which UART is used for S-Bus, which UART is used for smart audio or anything else. You can just look right on the board. And the flat back is fantastic for mounting all of your VTXs and the receivers and everything to the board, so it makes for a super clean build. Or you can mount it really, really close to a sheet of carbon, maybe just put a layer of electrical tape down, and it makes for a really super low stack. It's an F4 board. I don't have a picture of the other side that's super clear. It's got everything imaginable on the board except for black box. We really wanted to keep the flat back, so we could not fit black box on there. It's got 6 UARTs, 2 of them are inverted. One of the other great features about it is that it does have a connector for your 4-in-1 pass-through, or 4-in-1 connection. And it also has a current sense in pin, so it will take a 4-in-1 ESC that has a current sensor on board. And the recent Acon, whatever, the 4-in-1, the 6S thing that's coming out, is at this point the recommended 4-in-1 to be used for the Hyperlite F4 board. The board will come with multiple harnesses for different 4-in-1, the different popular 4-in-1 ESCs, namely the Hobbywing one, the Acon one, and I think another one. And that's the biggest benefit of this board, because while having an all-in-one is fantastic, people aren't really excited about having everything built into one board. But this way, with just one little plug, you can just plug the boards together, and it's like having an all-in-one, but it's not an all-in-one, and it's a nice little neat stack, and it's not super tall, and you can mount everything to the top of it. So it's super clean. It's actually cleaner than what I've been able to get with my Asgard and Kamikaze all-in-one boards. It also has solder pin holes for your ESC if you want to bypass the connector, or if you break the connector, you can still solder on your all of your ESC wires. So very good, very cool. It's going to be somewhere in the $30 to $35 range, somewhere in the middle of that, and I'm actually really excited about it. Now, I want to talk about the recent copies. Not really recent. There have been copies of the Floss 2 for a while now, but China has caught wind of the popularity of the Hyperlite series. And starting with Alibaba, somebody has sold or given my plans for a previous prototype of the Floss 2 to Alibaba, or some merchant on Alibaba that is selling the Floss 2. And the way I know that it's a direct copy, or it is actually my files, is that it is a one-to-one copy, and there's so many intricate little lines, just like Tommy and his remix frame, and somebody just got a hold of his prototype files. They got a hold of my prototype files somehow, and they are cutting the actual Floss 2, probably from garbage carbon, garbage everything, but they're cutting the actual Floss 2 files, the prototype version, and selling that. And something that's really funny is that, so I originally made the Floss 2, and people complained, our testers complained, that the top plate was really ugly, and just the whole thing was just ugly in general. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'll try to make it prettier, even though it's going to like reduce the durability, and it's not going to make it good the way I want. And so I redesigned the top plate and I put all these little holes in it. And when I was designing it, I knew that it was going to be a problem for the manufacturer, but I didn't say anything because the manufacturer that we have, we kind of just give them everything and they just do it all. But when they started manufacturing the board, and they didn't say anything either initially, but when they started manufacturing the plates, they then contacted me and said, okay, so we can't punch all these holes in the top plate because, number one, our drill bit is wearing out much quicker and we have to slow the machine down and it takes much, much longer, which is what I already knew. So they told me, please make the holes bigger so that we don't have to punch so many holes. And so I changed the top plate, and that's why it has like this little waffle effect. And so the copy on Alibaba is using that same top plate, and they're just going through all that headache of punching all those holes. Okay, so Diatone has also made a copy of the Floss 2, or at least highly inspired by the Floss 2. They made it, and they tested it, and they released it on their Facebook page, and a bunch of people just told them, like, look, this is a copy of the Floss 2. Like, you're just going to copy it and call it your own frame and say that you've done all this innovation, and your company's name is Diatone Innovation. So Diatone actually contacted me and said, hey, we want to give you credit for the design. I said, fantastic, go for it, you know, great. And it doesn't bother me at all, not even a little bit. In fact, that frame probably made the Hyperlite series much more popular, and the sales of the Floss 2 spiked a little bit because of the publicity and just the information around that frame. And now on Banggood, I have my picture on Banggood where Diatone has said, thanks to Bob Ruge for coming up with this design and doing all this thing. And it's nice that they actually took a look at the current Floss 2 because they're using the top plate with the waffle pattern that's easier to cut. And they've then done some design changes. It looks like a reasonable design. I mean, it's fine. If you want to buy that, go for it and buy it. I mean, I don't really care. It doesn't bother me. The people that are buying those kinds of copies and those kinds of frames, they're not like my customers. They're not Hyperlite or Piroflip customers, so it doesn't really matter to us. And if anything, it's just better because my name is on there. Like, it's just, I have now worldwide kind of exposure, more worldwide exposure. So great, good for them. Go for it. They also copied an old design, which is going to be outdated very, very quickly, very, very soon by the new Hyperlite Dragana that's coming out, which will also probably get copied by a bunch of frame makers as well. Although it's not a super unique frame, so you can't really say it's a copy because this design has been around for a long time and it's nothing really special. It's really just an evolution of the Floss 2. Next up is the Eachine copy, and Eachine just straight, like, so this quad that Eachine has made, it's a straight up, it's like Attack of the Clones. Like, every part of this quad is an Eachine clone, except for the props. So they're using genuine Dahl props, and I contacted the people at Dahl to ask them, are they actually buying the props from you? They said, yeah, those are actually our props. So it's the only thing I can confirm that's not a copy by Eachine, and it's just very funny that this whole thing is just a super clone. And yeah, it's not like a direct Floss 1 copy, but come on, they could have just changed the top plate a little bit so that people don't get confused, but it doesn't really matter. Again, like I said originally with the other copies, the people that are buying this stuff are not our customer. They're either people from overseas that just can't get access to Hyperlite stuff and Banggood just has better worldwide logistics, or they're people that just don't buy in this kind of price class. That being said, this darn thing is being sold for $200 to $215 or $220. And just yesterday, Sergio and I were talking about offering like a spec class of a high spec and a medium spec, or a 6S spec and a 4S spec quad. And the 4S spec quad came out to be the price that we were expecting to offer it, came out to be the same as this Eachine quad. So now I wonder what's the point of spending this money on an Eachine super clone when you can get all genuine stuff for the same price? It's just a big, yeah, you have to build it yourself, but it's a big question mark in my head. So good for them, good for those. Speaking about Dahl, they sent me a bunch of recent props, a bunch of prototype props, along with some 2-inch and 3-inch props. I don't really do 2-inch, as you know from maybe my previous couple videos. 2-inch is just a really inefficient size to me, so I just stay away from it. That being said, the 2-inch prop that they've made, the quad blade, is pretty darn good. It does perform really well. It just has a little bit less low end and a little bit less top end than a 2.5-inch blade. So that's that. It's very similar to the A-Van prop, actually. Maybe the A-Van prop, the A-Van Micro, is a little bit bigger or a little bit faster, but whatever, it's a 2-inch prop. They've also made a 3-inch prop, and this 3-inch prop, the designer of the Dahl props has said that this is the best prop that he has ever designed. Now, I couldn't get out of them what that actually means, and when I flew it, I thought, okay, well, yeah, it performs great. It's a 3-inch prop. It performs like the GemFan 3-inch props that they've recently made, and they're very similar. It's pretty efficient, it's pretty fast, pretty good, but it's 3-inch. To me, like, 3-inch and 4-inch are kind of bastard sizes. They don't really serve a big purpose for me personally, because if I'm going to be flying FPV, I either want to fly something for fun or I want to fly something with a GoPro on board, and I wouldn't really carry a GoPro on anything less than a 5-inch just because of the weight dynamics. And if I'm going to be flying for fun, I want it to be kind of a small quad because I can fly it more places. So that's where 2.5-inch lies for me, and that's why I'm strayed away from 3-inch and 3.5-inch and 4-inch for the time being. Maybe things will change. Electronics are always getting a lot better. Maybe 4-inch will get light enough and powerful enough to carry a GoPro as well as a 5-inch and have good performance and good handling feel and whatnot. Okay, so next thing is this thing. This is, I forgot the name of the bag, but it's from ThinkTank, and as you know, I love the ThinkTank FPV heli pack. I think it is by far the best FPV quad backpack that I have ever used or ever seen. This is another bag of theirs from a different kind of branding, and it's just, ThinkTank's quality is the best bag quality in terms of like functional bags that I've ever seen, and the materials and the way they assemble these bags are just fantastic, and the prices express the extremely high quality as well because they are very expensive. Now, they sent me this one because I've been hounding them about wanting a bag for micro quads, and the bag that I would want for micro quads would also work for larger quads, so I would really wish that they would make kind of just like a smaller FPV heli pack. And I told them I really like the structure. It needs to have the same depth of the heli pack because it makes the bag much more useful. And as you'll see here, when you open the bag, you cannot put your Tyrannus in like this because the top of the bag won't close. It doesn't clear the sidewalls. So you have to put it in flat. And when you put it in flat, it takes up a whole bunch of space and you don't have enough room for all the other stuff that you want to put in. So I pretty much want the same exact bag, which is something that I'm trying to work on with them and maybe another company as well, to just have the ability to file all of my stuff in. I can put my controller in sideways, I can put my goggles in sideways, and then I have all this extra space for quads and batteries and whatever else I want to pack. And I think that that bag would be very popular because it's a smaller bag. It can carry everything on the inside, and you can strap stuff to the outside. So it's literally just a mini FPV heli pack because of my recent ridiculous micro obsession. So the next thing is this thing. This is the SunnySky Edge 2306 2700 kV motor, and seems like a great motor. I haven't used it yet, but these companies, they still contact me and they want me to test their products and give them feedback and whatnot. And I tell them all the same thing now. There are so many 5-inch motor products now that it's pretty much saturated. If you want to pay 20-something bucks for a motor, you're going to get a $20-something motor. There are a couple motors that have better value than others, namely the BBB 2207, that's $15 from Underground FPV, $15 or $16. That I personally think is the best value in FPV, best value motor in FPV. But even the motor that comes from DYS, the $10 motor, performs pretty darn well. The 2207 performs great. I personally haven't built it, but I've seen it flying. I've flown somebody else's with it, and honestly, it flies fantastic. It's definitely not the highest quality motor, but it flies really well, and it's got one of the lowest issue rates at Piroflip. So kudos to DYS, they've done a great job. And so there's a lot of motors out there, and they all perform great, and this is yet another motor that performs great. You cannot really go wrong with a 5-inch motor that's $20-something today. There's no like $20-something 5-inch motors that are bad. Like, all of them perform fantastic. So this is yet another motor that is probably going to perform fantastic. Now, I'm not personally a fan of the casing design, but I can say that I like the shaft, I like the windings, I like the stator, the magnets feel good, everything feels nice and smooth, the bottom is flat, and yeah, it looks like a good motor. That being said, let's discuss something that's a little bit more useful. So motor sizes have come into question recently, and the recent 2405s out there have been very, very popular. 2405, 2207, 2306, these sizes that people don't really know what to choose, or at least they're putting a lot of stress on their motor selection and their prop selection for racing. And while all that does matter, and you kind of should have a preference for yourself, it honestly does not make as enormous of a difference as you think. I think that as long as you have a quad that is competitive and can actually fly through the race, you can do anything. You can win with a very mediocre, that Eachine quad. If it doesn't break in the sky, you can probably win a race with it. And if you give it to a top pilot, they can probably beat most other top pilots with it. So you just have to have a minimum spec kind of craft. And that being said, let's discuss the motor sizes that people think about. So 2405 versus 2207. 2207 stator has more stator volume than a 2405 motor. That means that it's going to draw more power. It's probably going to be more powerful. And because it has more stator height, it can push up to higher RPM. Now, there's a lot of stuff behind that, and it's just a bunch of experience and a bunch of testing things that I've kind of developed this understanding of stator height versus stator width a little bit. I kind of know a little bit, not a whole lot. But the taller stators tend to do better with higher kV. They have their throttle range, or their torque band is pushed up in the throttle range. So you can expect more kV from a tall stator, and you probably even want a higher kV motor in a tall stator. So 2600 kV-ish in a 2207 stator is really fantastic, and it gives you really good high RPM. So you probably want to run maybe a little bit lower pitch prop because you're going to be running such high RPM, and in return you're going to get a little bit better control feel because you have more RPM on the motors. And you know, this is just from experience. I'm just talking about experience of testing a whole bunch of stuff. But the 2207 will probably draw a couple more amps than a 2405. Now, when you go wide stator, if you look at aerial photography platforms, they use really, really wide stators, and they use really, really low kV and really, really high voltage because they want to get all the efficiency possible. When you go with a super wide stator, it naturally has a wider torque lever, so it has more torque in the low end range of the motor. Once it gets past that torque band, it no longer has the torque and just energy and just ability to manage the RPMs well when it gets up into the high RPMs. So if you're going to go with a wider stator motor, you're probably better off going with an even lower kV so that you can spread out that power band over the entire throttle range, and going with a higher pitch prop. And in return, you're probably, maybe, going to end up with, well, this is at least what the racers say, you're going to end up with a little bit more efficiency. Now, if you go with a really low kV and jack up the voltage up to 6S, now you can actually see some real efficiency, and not so much efficiency in time, in flight time, but you get efficiency in performance. You no longer feel sag, you no longer feel variations in flight characteristics throughout the battery of the quad. Again, I am not a racer. This is just information that I have gained from talking to racers and Sergio and just testing a whole bunch of stuff. So this is just a quick overview, but what I would recommend to anybody that's trying to go for really high efficiency or just higher performance, not necessarily speed, but namely efficiency of being able to get consistent performance throughout your battery, as well as maybe a little bit more flight time, you want to go with a wider stator. 2405, you don't really need to go up to a 2407, because when you're going to a wider stator, you want to use a very steep pitch prop, either the HQ 5x5x3 V1S or the Azure 5150 are my two favorite props as steep pitch props, but the Dahl 5050 blade is also a fantastic prop. And when you put it on a wide stator with low kV, you will have really good throttle control because you'll have a really nice wide power band, and you should have more efficiency, and you will not see sag, but you will also lose a little bit of control because you will be running a little bit lower RPM. So when Sergio and I were discussing all this yesterday, that's how we came up with the spec classes, or at least the recommended spec quads that we're going to be offering very soon, or he's going to be offering very soon. And it's really just going to be a kit and a general recommendation, because we've come to a point where there are a lot of questions. There's a lot of new pilots still. They don't know what to choose. They don't know what to get. And everybody just wants to have the best kind of setup, and they just want recommendations from people. So this is going to be a recommendation list for a craft, for a build that comes from a lot of the top racers. This is what Doma FPV is going to be racing. This is what many people will be racing in the Pyrodrone team, as well as all the people out there. And it's just a recommendation, but it will also come in a kit. So, and the prices are going to be like good. They're going to be really, really good prices. So that's all good as well. And finally, here are the 7-inch arms that I've gotten for my Flowride design. And I'm waiting on HawkSky to send me some motors that they are making or have made that should be pretty well suited for 7-inch. And I was going to build the Flowride with 7-inch, but I actually don't think it's a very good long-range frame, like I've said before. And what people are using for long-range, a lot of people are using the Floss 2 for long-range on the 6-inch because it's just so light, and it's really well packaged for a battery underneath, and it has nice room on the top deck for GPS and your GoPro and everything on top. So it's really well set up for a long-range quad. And so I decided to make 7-inch arms for the Floss 2.1 in the 5mm arms. And that I'm very much looking forward to, because when I did design it, I did the calculations, and it's going to come out to about 75 grams. And that's even less than the G2, just the main plate of the G2 from TBS. So I'm pretty excited about that, actually. I wasn't really too thrilled about 7-inch, but now that I got that going, I'm hoping the arms are going to hold up and not going to be too flimsy or flexible, but I'm really looking forward to testing that one. And finally, the Flowride frame from Underground FPV, that's like a special edition version. They sent me one. I left it at Piroflip yesterday. I couldn't show it to you guys in the video today, but it's coming first week of March. It's really nice. It's just really nice. And they're using some really unique carbon on there. The arms are going to be a carbon Kevlar mix, and it's going to be really interesting. So I'm going to show you guys that in a later video. The Hyperlite Dragana is coming as well. The Hyperlite F4 is coming as well. And as you might have been able to tell, the kits that we're kind of putting together or expecting to put together will include the Dragana frame along with the Hyperlite F4 and the preferred 4-in-1 at the time. If you watched through this whole video, thank you so much. If you use the table of contents to jump around, thank you so much for using that as well, because I think that is actually a really efficient way to jump around and find information. I put a lot of effort into that stuff down there because that's how I would want it done if I was watching videos. I used to do a lot of educational development, and that's how I made videos, and students love the fact that they could jump around in little 2-minute segments and just find the info that they need specifically. I really think it's a really efficient lecture method as well. If anybody is a teacher out there watching me, I think it's really, really efficient. It takes a lot of time to do, but the end result is a much more useful body of content compared to just straight video on there that you have to like figure out what's what and watch a whole bunch of it. Don't forget to floss, because flossing is very, very important. I left out a whole mess of stuff in this video, and I'll probably include it in a future video. Sorry I don't have more time to shoot these videos, and thanks for watching. Take care.